Matt and Leah, 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 Matt and Leah. Matt and Leah, Matt and Leah, Matt and Leah, Matt and Leah. Matt and Leah, Matt and Leah, Matt and Leah, Matt and Leah. Pancake!
What is up, boys and girls and everything in between? It's Bear With Us. I'm Matt. She's Leah. Leah, how are you, my dear?
I'm fantastic. I have a great time trying to make you laugh during the intro. That's my favorite thing to do.
The dance that you just performed could best be described as something out of Thriller.
I was going to say maybe like out of a strip club or something.
If I ever went to a strip club and saw anyone dance like you just did, I'm putting my money back in my pocket and running out the door because we are likely dealing with the undead. And when I said it reminded me of Thriller, I didn't mean like the dance.
Like Michael Jackson?
Michael Jackson and the band of zombies. I meant more like when they're crawling out of the grave and their faces are sort of falling off. Like,
you guys, this is the love I get and the appreciation I get for trying to be cute and funny and make my boyfriend laugh. I get insulted. This is what happens. Like, he doesn't even, like, what was that?
That was what you're doing.
I wish you guys could, well, on YouTube, the YouTubers that can see what you just did. What is that? That is not cute.
Are you turned on?
No.
Good. Because we're not here to turn you on today. We're here to discuss very, very important topics, Leah.
What are we going to discuss today? I'm nervous. Matt said like he's going to handle today's episode, so I don't even know what we're talking about.
I'm putting you on the spot.
We didn't have a pre-season, not a pre-season, a pre-production meeting. Yeah, we didn't even have one of those today.
Well, life is busy now that the pandemic days are seemingly behind us. Our schedule is full speed ahead, which is awesome for the most part. But we have to be a little creative when it comes to time for Bear With Us, for the Bear With Us listeners. We oftentimes have trouble deciding what it is we're going to talk about today.
Right.
And we're going to do a little deep dive, I think, today. Because we originally kicked around the idea of just doing a mailbag episode, which, by the way, keep sending your questions, filling the Bear With Us mailbag. It's doing awesome. We're actually getting to the point where it's hard to play catch up. There are a lot of people. It's not like we're getting to everybody. So if we didn't get to your question, maybe resend it, maybe be patient. Or if you come up with a new one, we're happy to assist you where possible, or at least make fun of you and make jokes at your expense for your misfortune.
I would never do that.
I would. That's what I do basically professionally. But we do get a lot of questions. It's pretty much a recurring question that people are very curious. An aspect of our relationship we don't talk about too frequently is your relationship and your role as we like to refer to in our house as a bonus mom.
Right.
Obviously, anyone that's listened to this podcast knows the beginning of our relationship was about as tumultuous and backward as a relationship can get. Alas, we've survived this far, but we do get a lot of questions from people. Blended families these days in 2021, I would dare say, are almost the norm.
Right.
It's no longer the taboo of you get divorced and you have step parents. And listen, the world has changed for the better for the most part. But a lot of people have kids and a lot of people have questions, and people that have kids are afraid to start dating because people who don't have kids don't understand what it's like to have kids. It's a daunting proposition.
Yeah.
You found yourself in this situation. I don't want to say unaware of what it would entail, but now that you've been in it, we've been in this relationship for 2+ years now. And you're finally comfortable in the role, but we get questions all the time about what that means. So I want to talk to you a little bit more about that.
I'm nervous. This is something, like you said, we don't really talk about. You know, it's like very, you know.
I think it's an important conversation to have. I mean, as much as we like to keep the show lighthearted and funny, this is something I think could hopefully serve some people, or maybe answer a few questions, or at least make somebody realize, like, hey, you're not alone. Because a lot of people deal with this every day.
Well, and I wish I had someone I could talk to, because there's no rule book. There's no guide you can follow. And I don't know anyone. Like, my parents are still together. Your parents are still together. I don't have, anyone that I know close to me that are divorced and trying to help raise someone else's kids. That's something that I'm just kind of winging, for lack of a better term. I don't have something to go off of.
No, you're right. There's no rule book.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to start from the top. Obviously, you and I have known each other a lot longer than we have been together. But even at the early days of our relationship, people and I'm sure somebody listening to this can relate. The early part, it's just like dating anybody else. You find somebody you're attracted to. We had chemistry, we had a vibe, and you're not thinking necessarily, particularly most people on the first, second, third date, you're not thinking, oh, the future with this person is going to be this. So you get into it, and it's like, oh, by the way, I mean, you obviously knew I had children. You knew I was divorced. It's a package deal.
Right.
But you don't think about that up front. So when did it become obvious to you? When did it occur to you that, okay, I'm not just signing up for Matt. I'm not just getting this man. He comes with a lot of baggage.
Well, even when we first started chatting and talking, again, I didn't know where it was going. I did know you have kids. So it was kind of like, I don't know. I've never even dated anyone that had kids before, but I knew even talking to you or starting to hang out with you, I probably wouldn't have even done that if I wasn't like okay with you having kids. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, as you're saying, oh, no one thinks about that, but I was thinking about that because I just feel like, well, what if I actually really start to like him and oh my God, but he has kids. So like I knew it going into it that I would, if this were to be something that were to develop, I was okay with the fact that you had kids.
Right.
You know?
And from my perspective, I was all in on you, but I also realized that my priority is to protect my kids no matter what happens. So we were together for what, 6 months or so before you ever met my kids. And that was by design.
Yeah.
Because I made sure, I took it upon myself. I said, look, I know how I feel about Leah. I know I want you involved in my life, but I don't want to expose the kids right away.
Right.
Because God forbid they like you, they want to hang out with you. And next thing you know, you and I don't work out, and it's, oh, what happened to Leah? She was cool. We liked her. And I feel like that's every parent's duty if you're in this sort of situation. Protect your kids first. Look out for them because they're always going to be your kids. Partners can come and go in life, but your kids are going to be your kids. Make sure you are respectful of that relationship first and foremost. But eventually, it got to a point where, hey, we were living in two separate corners of the country.
Yeah.
Flew you into Connecticut, and you got to meet my kids. What was that like for you, to the best of your recollection, seeing it become real? Because you knew I had kids, but you hadn't met them.
Well, and that was also something I was very hesitant to do as well,
Right.
because from my perspective, I love kids and I knew I would get attached to your kids right away. Like I just knew that we would have a connection because I just love kids. And if they come from you, you know, I know how much I love you. So I was like very worried about that. I was trying to put that off as I wasn't like, oh, let me meet your kids. I can't wait to meet them. I was like really trying to push that off because God forbid something happened with us and I got attached to the kids. That would hurt me too. That was like something that was very nerve-wracking for me. But I'll never forget the first time I met Lola, the youngest, and I was so nervous. She was 4 at the time, and I was so nervous because I'm like, I didn't know how to act, and I never really think about that. I never think like, well, how should I act in this situation? Because I also don't want your kids thinking like, oh, this chick thinks she's going to be our mom. Like, you know, that was not at all how I was trying to go into it. I was like, just trying to think, let me be me. Let me try to be the best version of myself. Try to be a good example, good role model. Cause I don't know what they know of me or what they think. I know they knew I was on TV. So do they think maybe I'm like this crazy girl they see on TV or something like that, you know? So I was putting a lot of pressure on myself.
What did it feel like from your perspective as this relationship started growing, realizing that as much as we try to keep the past separate, these are human beings. They are my children. Their mom is a great mom to them and is still obviously super involved in their life. But now, you know, now it's apparent and obvious. And if you and I are going to be a thing, that's not a part of my life that I can replace.
Right.
What does that feel like? To me, on paper, if I go, oh, well, and I'm just being perfectly honest here from my male brain perspective. Oh, she's got 3 kids. Ooh, I don't know if I'm going to get into that. Oh, she's got 3 kids and the dad's still in the picture. Ooh, that's a lot to handle. Like, I really didn't give you any sort of easy out here.
No. Well, and also based off of how our relationship first started, we didn't start on the right foot,
Right.
your ex and I, which now we're great. Everything's fine. But, so that to me, I think was really hard. Cause I'm like, all this shit that happened,
Yeah.
that was just hard to kind of swallow. And I just was kind of like worried about where I fit into everything. Right.
Mhm.
So like, you obviously your kids have a mom, they have a dad, they don't need another mom, like, and I'm not trying to be another mom, but like, where do I fit in? Like, do I make rules? Do I tell them if they're doing something wrong, but I want them to like me, so I'm a little nervous if I were to punish them for something? Like, I think especially at first I was very, very just like lenient with everything, just kind of like, I didn't want to say, oh no, don't do that, or you should do this. And so I was just kind of like with tiptoeing around, and I still do tiptoe around. It's been 2.5 years, and there's sometimes where I'm like, hey babe, can you, like, I'm asking them to do this, but they're not listening. And so you're like, guys, if Leah says you're doing this, this is what you need to do. And like, you need to listen to Leah like you listen to me. And but I think because we just have so much fun together, sometimes I don't know if they think of me as like, oh, she's still
it's not
an authoritative
still, right, you're
role.
still more of a friend than an authority figure. I completely lost my train of thought.
Oh, and I think too, the biggest like turning point and like making it real was moving here to Pittsburgh, right?
Right.
So prior to that, it was like, oh, I saw your kids once in a while. You and I were still brand new relationship, trying to make that work. And finally, when I moved here, it's like, oh, I see these kids every week. Like, this has become a part of my normal everyday life almost. We get them on the weekends, every single weekend. So that to me was a huge adjustment, I think, going from living the life that I did before moving to Pittsburgh. I was traveling on the road 4 or 5 days a week. I get home off the road and I just want to sleep. I want to go get a cheat meal and I want to drink some wine and just lay on the couch all day. That's what I did every single day I got back from the road.
Which is a stark contrast to where I was, where I would be on the road, not quite as much, but still on the road constantly, and come home. And there was never time for laying on the couch being lazy. It was work mode, dad mode.
Right.
And there was no in between. And we've talked about how when you and I first started dating, I could not relax. No. I had a physical, literal inability to sit still and watch a complete 2-hour film. I just couldn't do it. I had to be go, 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 go. I've gotten better at that now. But so full disclosure, when you get divorced in the state of Connecticut, you have to go to a parenting class. And one of the things that was a big takeaway for me was the importance of starting new traditions.
Yes.
So now we're in Pittsburgh. We're close to my kids. That's why we are in Pittsburgh, to be near them. And the importance of starting new traditions, which is something I think we've done a great job.
Very good. Yeah. We did that so we moved here, December, it was like the middle of December 2019. And we made a new tradition. Christmas Eve is going to be our thing. We are going to host Christmas Eve. My parents came in, my family, and mind you, Matt and I had been living together not even 2 weeks at this point. Right. And so we're bringing my family here, meeting his family for the first time. We have your kids, and we had, I would say, the best night ever on Christmas Eve. Like, the kids were talking about it for the whole following year up until this past Christmas Eve. Like, oh, I can't wait for Christmas Eve. I'm like, it's Easter. Like, we just had Christmas, but they can't stop talking about it. And to me, that, like, I take a lot of pride in that, like, that we have created these new memories, these new traditions for them.
Was there a point or an event for you that made you finally feel comfortable really embracing that role, or was it just a series of small steps?
I think it's just a series of small steps. And I think, to the point I was making about having this new way of doing things, now I land and go into bonus mom mode, right? Where I wasn't used to that. And I think for at least the last year, like during the pandemic, I sort of was kind of overcompensating, I think. Like, okay, how can I be the best bonus mom for them? What can I do to like make them happy? What can I do? Like, I just was putting them first for everything, right? And not even thinking like, well, let me see how I would do this or how I would think about doing this. I was instead focusing so much on the kids that I was kind of losing myself, right? So I think finally I'm at a place now where it's like a good balance where, hey, I'm getting home and I'm going to take a nap because I'm tired. And I think if I take the nap, then I feel better and I can be more present and be a better Leah for when I'm with them. And I just think for the longest time, I was so worried and putting so much pressure on myself to be the perfect stepmom, for a lack of a better term, like just trying to be so perfect all the time. But it's okay. Like, it's okay to not be perfect. It's okay to not have the answers. It's sometimes, I would get so overwhelmed. I would go upstairs and cry because it was just like, oh my gosh, like one needs water, the other one needs this. I have to cut this for them and wash, like, I don't know, because I don't have kids.
Yeah, you went from not having children to having three.
And there was no real like gradual build. It was just, you're in it and here we are. And they're such amazing kids. I'm so obsessed with them. Like, I feel so lucky that you have such like amazing kids. Cause if they were brats, it would make it that much harder. You know what I
Trust me,
mean?
I think about that all the time. How lucky we are in that I have children who are relatively well behaved.
Yes.
Compared to some of the rugrats and monsters I've encountered in my life. It definitely made this transition a little bit easier than them being psychopathic nightmare children.
They're awesome. But it's like there were times where, even a couple of months ago, I'd be like in the kitchen and, they're like glued to my side sometimes, especially the girls. Like, I love them so much. And like, we have so much fun together. But I'm like, would go upstairs and you're like, what's wrong? I'm like, I just need 5 minutes just to like breathe for like a few minutes. And you're like, oh, totally. Like, I get it. And I'm like, okay. Cause sometimes I would be afraid to admit that to you because I didn't want you to think that I was over it or that I was annoyed with them or like not in it.
That's a conversation that we've had numerous times.
Yeah.
It was sort of establishing boundaries.
Right.
I remember the first time you, just in a conversational manner, it was kind of a heated debate, but you said the phrase, "But they're not my kids."
Yes.
I, of course, went into,
you took such offense.
Papa Bear mode. I was super offended. And then I realized upon conversing further, that wasn't your intention. That's not what you meant. It was that you didn't know how comfortable you could feel.
Right. And like sometimes if there's something that I don't like it's okay for me to say, hey, like knock that off.
Right.
But sometimes I get worried because they're not my kids. And like, I don't know, like, I don't know how I would feel if I had kids and someone else is helping raise them and like, well, that's not what I would do. Well, you know what? Like, that's what, like, that's what we're in, this is what we're doing. And I'm sure I'm going to make mistakes and I'm sure there's going to be times where, but I'm still at that phase where I don't want them to be mad at me.
Sure.
And I'm sure as a parent, that's something that people struggle with, but there's no matter what because I always say, well, no matter what, you're their dad. So they're gonna love you. They don't have to love me. And that to me is, I put pressure on myself, for wanting them to always like me and not be mad at me.
And on the other hand of that argument, another issue that we have encountered and had to discuss is there are times where you've intimated to me that you don't necessarily feel included, where it's a Matt and his kids are doing this thing. Oh, I'm almost like the fifth wheel, so to speak, which is something from my perspective where I think I don't want to burden you or take you for granted that, yes, these are my kids. Yes, they're part of my life. Yes, they are part of your life, but I don't want to just go, oh, well, yeah, these are my kids. Deal with it.
And
figure
you just
it out.
like assume that
and just assume that you're all in on things. That's why when I make plans, I still more often than not go, hey, do you want to come?
Right.
And there's been times where you go, of course I want to come. Like you're offended that I didn't ask you. But I also have been overly cautious not to assume that you're just going to embrace this role because it is a role. Obviously, I know how you feel about them, and I wouldn't be in this position with you if I didn't trust you and fully, believe in your abilities to be the bonus mom or whatever we're calling it that given week.
Yeah.
But I've also been conscious to try to tread lightly when it comes to that, which I think is probably something people listening, if you're in this position, if the kids do belong to you, I think that's important to at least be prepared to overcompensate and not expect your new partner, or even after a few months, or in our case, 2 years, to just willingly step in and go, all right, I'm playing mom. Because to your point, their mom is still in their life.
And they have a great mom. They love their mom. And I'm not trying to replace mom or try to, and I think I do a good job of that. Like, hey, I'm here. I hope that someday, when they're growing up, they're going to be like, oh, Leah, we always did this with Leah. Like Leah always helped us with this, or I'm so glad Leah helped me figure this out. Like that to me means more than, oh, like I don't want it to be like, oh, remember Leah was trying to do this, or Leah thinks that she's better than it. Like that's not what I want at all. All I want is to like be the best I can be. And I'm trying to figure out what that is.
What would you say has been the biggest obstacle you've had to face and overcome in playing this role?
For me, I really think to find the balance of like the fact that they're not my kids, that's something that we do talk about, and figuring out like, for me, for example, I'm here in Pittsburgh. I feel like this is, it's all new to me, and figuring out this new bonus mom thing, this is new to me. I don't really know. And I don't know a lot of people here in Pittsburgh. And so sometimes I get to a point where I get overwhelmed with all of the newness and feel like, oh my gosh, well, I just like sometimes we get fighting about it. Cause I'm like, I'm going to Florida next week. I just need to see my sister, right? Cause she makes me feel like more grounded, more myself. I can kind of get back to who I am. Because sometimes when I'm here, it is overwhelming to move to a new city and not know anyone. And now 3 bonus kids and just getting thrown into that role. It is a lot. So I think sometimes I get lost in it. And I think it's about finding the balance. Like, okay, some weekends it's okay for me to go be with my sister. And I'm not going to do that every weekend, of course, because I want to be around the kids. But I think it's about finding the balance of, okay, be a good bonus mom, but still be good for Leah. Because if I'm not good and I'm not like seeing my sister or my family or my friends and I'm just immersed into this life, to me, that's kind of compromising who I am. I think it's important to have that balance. And I think for anyone who's put into this role, whether you're male, female, you you want to be a good step parent, but at the same time you still have to be good for yourself, and you don't have to choose from one or the other, whatever that is. Just be well balanced, and don't put so much pressure on yourself. It's okay, you're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, looking back in hindsight, if I had to do it all over, I don't know that I wouldn't do it exactly the same way.
Yeah.
My biggest takeaway living through this and coming out on the other side better than when we entered is keep your children and your partners separate for as long as possible.
Yeah.
I truly believe that was a smart step. I still, if it were up to me, and I believe you, we probably would have waited
longer.
even longer.
Yeah, I wish we waited a little longer.
Because I think it's of the utmost importance to make sure that whomever you are bringing into your life and this relationship with your children, you have to make sure that that is rock solid at worst before you can bring it in. Because if you come in and it's like, oh, hey, I've been dating this guy for a couple weeks and he seems cool and he's got a good job and oh, the kids like him, but then all of a sudden, poof, the guy disappears. That messes with people. I think I believe it was in the Motley Crue movie. It was Nikki Sixx. They talk about like that was one of the reasons he was the way he was when I believe he was older, he was a teenager, but his mom, it was just a parade of different guys to where he became numb. He no longer knew how to have a healthy relationship because it was always wham, bam, thank you, ma'am. It was on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And kids are receptive to everything.
It's not a good example to set for them.
No, absolutely not. So I think I stand by the way we did it. Yes. Obviously, I would have done things better, I believe, but I still think we got through it and have made it to this point because we've figured it out along the way. But make sure your partner is rock solid and never sacrifice one for the other. You don't have to be less of a parent to be a good partner. If your partner wants more from you to where it's negatively affecting your relationship with your kids, maybe it's time to get a new partner.
Right. Because that's the one thing that I came into this knowing, no matter what, your kids are going to come first. And if they didn't, I would question you. I'd be like, because, some people might think, oh, well, why wouldn't I be first? Well, that. Like, I don't want to be first. If I'm in a relationship with someone who's putting me before their kids, that's a problem. And I'm not saying there's not going to be times where you feel like, oh, I need to
occasionally you have to like put the kids to bed early or get a babysitter so you can take your partner on a date. Sure. Yeah.
But I just feel like, I came into that knowing that. So I always think that in the back of my mind, you have to put the kids first. But I do think it is important to show, your kids a healthy relationship. Like we have a great relationship. We're always like, very lovey-dovey. We make fun of each other. We're open in front of them. And I think that's important too, for them to see that and to just see like how happy we are.
And I to your point, I think that's really important. You should be able to be yourself with your partner openly and honestly. Obviously, there are certain things you can't discuss in front of your kids.
Right.
I wouldn't let our kids listen to this podcast, for example, but you and I don't have to put on facades or pretend to be any certain way.
Right.
in front of them. And I think that's healthy because it allows them to see what a healthy relationship looks like rather than, and look, I'm a realist. They've probably seen unhealthy aspects of a relationship. They lived through a divorce.
Right.
My parents and your parents are both still together. I can't speak to what that does to a person personally.
Right.
I just, I can imagine. I'm trying to arm my children with the lowest number of long-term issues they possibly can have. If you had to give advice to anybody listening to this who might be in a similar situation, what would it be?
I would just say you have to, no matter what, the kids come first, and you have to know that. And I just say be patient. And I think what's helped us the most is we have been so honest and we communicate. Like even every Sunday when you bring the kids back, like we'll hang out, before we were on the same show, like we would on Mondays, we'd go out and have a few drinks after, bring the kids home. And it'd be like we'd kind of talk about the weekend. It'd be like, oh babe, like I didn't like when this happened. Like I didn't like that you said this in front of the kids, or do you know what I mean? Like
Sure.
there's like an example that I feel like we talk about every time we take the kids home, because I think it's important to like, hey, maybe next time include me in this, or next time like don't just assume I'm going to go to the baseball game or whatever it may be. I think we always talk about it, and I think that's what's helped us in our relationship with the kids and being in this role is we talked about everything.
Totally. Honesty, communication. That third one we can, well, or we can just bring it. Thank God we got that advice out of the way, because as you were giving it, I was staring at your boobs, and I figured we might want to make this a little more lighthearted for the remainder of the
Let's
show.
lighten it up a little
I know.
bit.
I'm sorry. I
No,
didn't
but
mean to be heavy. I think it was important.
I do think it's important because we hint at it all the time, like, oh, what's it like, to have someone else's kids? But like, I think it's important we had this. That was cool.
Right.
That
And
you
then we
brought
may
that
not
up.
have solved anybody's problems, but it's the honesty and the communication part that is the big takeaway.
One thing that I think that I just want to say that was just really warmed my heart was on Mother's Day this year. Like, I don't know what my role is. I don't know like what your kids think. We've never said like, oh, I'm going to be your stepmom someday or anything like that. We don't talk about that. And they had got me a card for Mother's Day and it said bonus mom on it. And you said that they picked it out.
It did.
And to me, like, I still have it on display downstairs. Like, I'll never put that away because like the fact that that's what they think of me, it just warmed my heart to something I don't even have words to explain how much that meant to me.
Well, and just to double down on that, as their father, I made perfectly sure that they wanted that, and they felt it wasn't like hey, you should start calling Leah this, or you should start. Yeah. No, we went to Target, and there was a wall of Mother's Day cards. There was actually a section for stepmothers and blended family, any manner of relationship. And and I said, you're comfortable with this, right? And they all unanimously agreed. And that's why it was like, okay, cool. I'm not forcing anybody's hand on that.
No.
Let them decide. And if they had said no, I'd have said, okay, cool, no problem. Let's find one that
has like a duck on it. Yeah.
Right. But it takes time, it takes patience, and it takes communication from all parties involved. But if you want it bad enough and you're willing to put in the work and the effort, no matter who you are, you can make it through. Aww. Now that we're done with the sappy stuff and I can focus on the important things in life, like Leah's boobs, baby, what's in the mailbag?
Here's the mail. It never fails. It makes me want to wag my tail. When it comes, I want to wail.
Thanks for coming, everybody.
Question number 1, honey. Did you like that performance?
Is that what that was?
All right, here we go. Question number 1, honey. We're
off to a hell of a start.
I love the Bear With Us podcast. I am a stan.
We have Bear With Us stans.
Wow.
We have made it.
That's amazing. I am a 20-year-old girl dating a 24-year-old guy. We have been dating for about 3 years now, and we always fight over his phone. Every time we take pictures using his phone, I scroll over them and find about 100 pictures of girls half naked or more beautiful than me. Whenever I try talking to him about it, he tends to ignore it and tells me that it's just pictures. Sometimes I just want to give up on us, thinking maybe he wants to explore some other relationship with these girls. Please help me. What should I do?
My first question is, does he know these half-naked girls? Because if they're just random girls,
if you have pictures of half-naked girls on your phone, that's weird.
I agree.
Like, that's weird. He's saying hundreds. Even if you had like 10
no,
photos.
I completely agree.
If you had photos of half-naked girls on your phone that were not me, I would be pissed.
No, I totally understand that. I'm just more or less saying, like, okay, if this dude just really thinks X celebrity is hot, and is it weird? Perhaps. Is it necessarily a reason to break up with somebody? Not always. If it's a celebrity, if it's somebody that's you just got a crush on. I think it's weird. I'm not advocating for that, but I'm just saying, rather than just kicking him to the curb right off the bat, maybe establish that. That said, it's weird. I think you need to just move on.
And I think the fact that you're trying to be like trying to communicate with him about it, and he's just ignoring it and telling you like just off, like that is a red flag. He should at least be open to the idea of chatting about it.
But also, and again, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here for the sake of discussion. If he is comfortable enough to let you have access to his phone, which I'm assuming based on the email, that's what the case is. It's not, oh, I went snooping through his phone, because if that's the case, then that's a whole nother discussion for a whole other day.
We've already talked about that.
We have. You can find it in the archives. It's one of the first episodes we ever actually did. Was something about privacy, etc.
Don't touch my phone or something.
But yeah, if he's comfortable letting you know they're in there, maybe he's not trying to hide something. Again, it's the only reason I'm going, well, maybe it's not just half-naked girls. Maybe he just likes to save. True story. I once bought a used laptop and found a folder that had thousands of photos of women's butts. They were just there.
And you were like, jackpot.
I was like, oh my God, I would have paid extra for this. No, but it was just it was very weird. There was no rhyme, or it was just
and I get it. Everyone has their thing that they're into. I understand that.
That's what I'm saying.
That's alarming.
It is alarming, but communication.
Yeah.
Talk to the dude. If they are just girls he thinks are cute and he likes to look at them when he's by himself, whatever. If he knows them, if they're actual people in his life, then you got a problem. Cut it off now.
Also, here's my thing, honey. You're saying they're more beautiful than you.
That's
not necessarily true.
Like that.
So I think you need to look in the mirror and remind yourself who the you are. You're a badass bitch. And just because he has photos of other women in his phone does not mean that you're not beautiful. So let's remember that, okay?
That's true. Just because you're on a diet doesn't mean you can't look at the menu.
You say that to everything, and that doesn't relate to this.
I know it doesn't, but it's a great saying.
You're basically advocating for what he's doing.
I'm not advocating for anything.
Yes, because he's on a diet. He's in a relationship, but he's still looking at other women on his phone. That's basically what you're saying.
Just everybody make sure you have your pet spayed or neutered. Well, I don't know. You didn't like my advice, so I went with the Bob Barker line.
Oh, okay.
As a kid, that really bothered me. At the end of...
Oh, I always liked that.
Well, no. Well, so I didn't understand. I knew what it meant to have your pet spayed or neutered. I didn't understand why Bob Barker was advocating for that. I was like, screw you, Bob Barker. I hope someone cuts off your balls. Because I didn't realize it was to prevent like the rapid widespread of pets who didn't have homes.
Right.
I just thought it was like just because he was some sort of crazy psychopath.
Speaking of psychopaths.
Oh, I thought you...
No, I don't know if this person's a psychopath. Okay, question number 2, honey. Hello once again, Matt and Leah. It's me, Harry, back with another question.
Hey, Harry.
How you doing, Harry? Y'all recently answered my last question months ago regarding finding a job since graduating from college. I'm proud to inform you guys that I have successfully found a job at a furniture warehouse doing general labor.
Hell yeah, Harry. Hell yeah.
We love that for you, Harry. It's physical work inside a hot warehouse, but I've been hanging in there for 3 months now, and it's been affording me the opportunity to earn my own living and to help my parents pay some bills. Thank you both. Look at us, just making some lives over here.
We just made the suggestion. Harry's doing the work.
My question is, how can I better manage my own income and take care of my needs before my wants as I continue to grow in life? Great question.
It is a great question, and I think I can give this a very simple answer. And congratulations once again to Harry. Like straight up respect. I'm not trying. I'm not
Honestly.
pandering. I'm
No.
not saying, hey, you needed something, and you're trying to better your life.
Yep.
You're trying to push forward, and you're putting in the work. And nothing in life happens without putting in the work. So respect to you, Harry, for doing what you got to do. To that point, do what you have to do so you can do what you want to do. If you apply that mentality to everything, including your bank account, you're going to be a lot better off. You take care of the primary bills first, right? And if you can't afford a new pair of Jordans, guess what? Wait, because once you get yourself comfortable and get everything in order, then everything sort of starts to fall in place. Leah and I understand how to struggle as much as anybody on earth, because despite where we're at today, both of us started like sub below the basement,
Yeah. And I think that's why we both are so good with our money. Like do I like to buy myself something nice once in a while? Sure. But I never, ever, ever live beyond my means. And I think it's important to set yourself up for your future. You know, is it nice to have a nice pair of Jordans? Sure. But that, buy yourself some shoes from Payless and save your money, and you'll start stacking that money away, and eventually you're going to see your money grow and grow and grow, and you're going to want to just keep saving. And doesn't mean once in a while you can't splurge. I think it's important to treat yourself. However, the fact that you're even writing in this email and you're trying to figure out what this next step is to be able to be more financially stable, that is give yourself a pat on the back for that. Just in general, the fact that you're trying to better yourself, I think that's great. But I just think, slow baby steps. I always live by this quote that I read years ago: work for a few years doing something that no one would ever do, so you can live the rest of your life the way no one will be able to do.
I dig
I
that.
kind of butchered that. It's not like verbatim what it was, but like put in the work now so later you can enjoy it. And I think it's important to just bust your ass, keep your head down, keep working, and it's going to all pay off because the universe always rewards hard work.
This is another instance to remind everybody that social media is not real life. So if somebody that you work with makes the same money as you do, all of a sudden posting pictures of their brand new car and their this, that, and the other thing, don't sweat it. Worry about you. Focus on you and the numbers in your bank account and do what's best for you. And you know what? Yeah, you want to have fun once in a while, good for you, but do what you've got to do so you can do what you want to do. Do you know what I used to do? My trick when I was super broke and just trying to get ahead. It sounded weird at the time, but I would buy myself a video game because I knew that, yes, it was like $50 or $60 at the time. And I mean, I'm not talking like young. I'm talking early 20s, living on my own. Like, okay, rent's due.
Ramen
Yeah, I can go
noodles.
to this concert, or I would buy a video game for $50 or $60 because I would know I could sit in my house and for at least the next week or two, I wouldn't do anything but play that video game.
Right.
So I looked at it more of like, well, instead of, I'm paying $50 now, but I'm only spending $3 a day on my entertainment for the following until I got paid or got back ahead of things. Did you ever have anything like that?
No, I was more of less fake it till you make it type of girl. Like act like I always say, like dress for the job that you want, not the job you have. And I would like go out and buy clothes, keep the tags on, and then return them after I wear them. Like that sort of thing, to like present yourself a certain way so you can get further ahead. That's kind of how I looked at it. Like I remember there's this famous like hairstylist, and his assistant ended up doing my hair years later, and she said that he would go into New York City and he was so broke, but he would go find the best suits. So when he was going to get clients or meeting with people, they would be like, oh, this guy is the man. But in reality, he hadn't done anything in his career yet. He was talented, but a lot of times talent doesn't necessarily work. You have to have connection. You have to have, so he presented himself the way he wanted to be perceived. But another point I want to make, we talk about social media. I was, that show Selling Sunset?
Yeah.
So this girl, Christine, on the show, I don't know if anyone listening has watched it. She's like this bad bitch, like always dripping and designer everything, right? So the first season, apparently, she would go buy crazy designer outfits, all of this stuff to make herself look like she was living this lavish life. And then she would go and return it right after. So, like, to your point, you're seeing people on social media living a certain way. it's not at all what you think. And she's posting photos and all of this stuff, but she didn't even own any of it. She would like invested in one piece and then just kept returning, exchanging, and all of that till she finally got to the point now where she can afford it. So
I have a question.
Yeah.
Does the shirt you're wearing still have a tag on it?
No, this is a cheapo little shirt. This is like $5 shirt.
Oh,
I mean, I could.
It was just more of a segue for me to talk you into
off?
taking it off. Let's get out of here.
Baby.
Make sure you refill the mailbag. Bear with us pod at gmail.com. Like, subscribe, leave comments, reviews,
stars. Subscribe to our YouTube. Watch that. Comment on our little IG photos. Please, give us a review on Apple, on podcasts, on Spotify. Do the little bell thing on YouTube so you get notifications. Damn it, you can't move your foot. I was just gonna
Goodbye forever.
Bear with us.